Welcome to Valley Forge in Pennsylvania. I'm making this video so my viewers can understand the sacrifice that our colonial soldiers had to make in order for America to be formed. After the Declaration of Independence was drafted in 1776, the Continental Army had to fight a bloody war for independence from Great Britain. And you could imagine what a cannon like this took to fire. People had to clean it out and put gunpowder in and set it on fire and get away fast enough and get a sense of appreciation of what it took to make America into a nation. At Valley Forge, you will find replicas of the huts that the soldiers built in the colonial army. And I'm going to read you some descriptions of this. Following their arrival on December 19, 1777, the men immediately set to work building huts for shelter. General orders the preceding day specified the size and design of the huts: 14 by 16 feet each, 6.5 feet high, a door next to the street, and a fireplace in the rear. Despite the orders, hut size, location, and material varied, as these reconstructions demonstrate. Men from different regions were familiar with different building techniques, and few were skilled craftsmen. A surgeon's mate wrote home, "Have one dull axe to build a log hut. When it will be done, knows not." As an encouragement to industry and art, the general promises to reward the party in each regiment which finishes their hut in the quickest and most workmanlike manner with $12. By mid-January, most soldiers were housed, 12 to a hut. So imagine if you had that $12 invested in 1777, how much would that be worth today? This gives you an idea of how the huts were constructed with logs, how they had to cut them so that they interlocked. You could take a look on the end here. You could see how they had to cut the semicircle arch in each end of the log and put it on top. And then they had to fill in the inner part with some wood and some cement, well, whatever they used. So this is the beginning of one of the huts. And let's take a look at the outside. Here you can see the hard work it was to cut the wood chips out of the log. And here you can see the outside. So here, looking at one of the huts, you can get an idea of what was used to fill in the space between the logs. It looks like cement. It may be a type of clay. I'm not really sure. And take a look at the roof, how you had to cut the boards for the roof shingles. And then back here, you could see the chimney that had to be built for the fire. So here you can see how the huts were arranged on a typical street. So this is an original street for the Muhlenberg Brigade. And now let's go inside one of the huts and see what's in. Okay, as you can see, there was a doorway which most of the time did not have a door. So the men were freezing as the cold winds swept. And you could see that here is a bunk bed of 3 bunks and 3 in the back. And then on the other side, there were 6 more. So you had 12 men living in this one hut. And if you look at the roof, you can see openings. So it's not like you're totally secure. It's not free from the elements, and the fireplace, which was very important, was down here. So imagine you're a young soldier, about 18, and you're away from your family, and you're with all these other soldiers, and your clothes are torn, and your feet are almost bare because the socks are no good. So General Washington had to write to Congress a lot to request better supplies. He's saying, "Hey, my men, they're starving and they're not wearing good clothes. We need help." Sound familiar? Now I'm going to show you a fascinating work of engineering by the colonial soldiers. This is known as a redoubt. And if you can see here, the earth excavation that was done to fortify this area. I'll just pan around so you could really appreciate the hours and hours of work that this took. So this sign says here, to build a redoubt. The earthworks today appear to be giant molehills, but it took complex engineering to construct them. A deep ditch was excavated in front to slow an attacking enemy. The dirt was heaped into gabions, baskets of interwoven branches, like that. Bundles of branches called fascines were piled outside and inside the wall to protect the defenders. Then the entire work was usually covered with sod to absorb cannon fire. Here at Redoubt 3, the inside walls were faced with stakes. Sod was scarce in the mud-churned encampment. Though partially reconstructed, Redoubt 3 is built on remnants of the original site. The valley between outer and inner line defenses left the Americans vulnerable to attacks from the south. Redoubt 3 was built to secure this Achilles heel. Directly across the valley is the outer line, supported by Brigadier General Anthony Wayne's Pennsylvania brigades. Their huts were plainly visible in the treeless encampment. In the event of attack, troops in Redoubt 3 could have raked the gap with crossfire. So the sign here says, Commander-in-Chief's Guards. On March 11, 1776, George Washington planted the seeds of a rich and illustrious military tradition. This military unit, officially known as the Commander-in-Chief's Guards, had the honor and responsibility of protecting General Washington and his baggage. Specially selected for their patriotism and fidelity to duty, the Guards enjoyed the highest confidence and respect of General Washington, and most of them rendered long, honorable, and faithful service. So if we take a look here, you can see the beds that had to be created out of logs and boards. Okay, this sign is the Commander-in-Chief's Guard. Washington's Guard occupied the huts near headquarters. At the beginning of the encampment, 50 guards protected General Washington, his baggage, and valuable papers. To be in the Life Guard, as the troops called it, one originally had to be a property-owning, native-born Virginian. It was assumed such men would be loyal to Washington. After Baron Friedrich von Steuben arrived in February 1778, 100 additional men from various state regiments were detailed to the Guard. Steuben personally trained them at marching, musket loading, and charging with bayonet. Under his skilled instruction, the Life Guard became a model for drilling the entire army. So if you could see these pictures, you get an idea of the Guards and Baron von Steuben. And this is the standard of the Commander-in-Chief's Guard, adopted after 1782. And at the top it says, "Conquer or die." Behind me you can see General George Washington's headquarters at Valley Forge. This house was originally used by the Potts family, and it was used for managing the iron forges. So this was perfectly suited for General Washington because it was more like an office. Okay, behind me you could see Valley Creek. And you could see that this is a good place to locate a forge because of the running water. The remains of this big water wheel. This is where Washington's headquarters are located, and this was formerly the Potts House, but General Washington used it as his headquarters here at Valley Forge. So the sign here says, "For 6 months this quiet path was a congested thoroughfare," as you can see in this picture. Express riders from Congress, civilians requesting passes, guards posted around the house, couriers rushing out with new orders. Foreign officers seeking employment continually jammed this road during the encampment. At the center of the tumult was the Commander-in-Chief. From headquarters, General Washington issued general orders to the brigades, dictated eloquent warnings to Congress, and directed military operations from Georgia to Maine. We are lucky today to be able to go to Valley Forge and see the history that is preserved. If we want it to be around for another 200 years, then a lot of reconstruction needs to be done, as shown here in the Washington headquarters area.